Okay, we've learned the metric system, we've learned the imperial system. Now what we need to do is learn how to convert between the two systems. And then we'll be done. So we've got a chart here. I've written them all out here for you. Isn't that kind? On the left-hand side is if you're converting metric to imperial. On the right-hand side is if you're converting imperial to metric. However, the system that I've taught you, the unit analysis, you don't need both of them. Just one side of this would be fine. The left side's fine. The right side's fine. You'll see what I mean in a second. The other thing to notice, it's really hard to read, but there's only one equal sign. It's right here. All the rest of these are not equal signs. They are all this sign here. Know what that means? It means swimming pool. 1 mile swimming. No, what that means is approximately. So if you actually wanted to know how much 1 mile is, it's not exactly 1.609 kilometers. It's actually something like 1.60934, but I think 3 decimal places is more than enough for our purposes. Okay, so I've got nothing to do except start doing some questions, so let's do them. We get to do the same method again. You're going to be so good at this unit analysis. If you use it, you don't have to. Remember, you can do your own thing if you want. 7.2 meters to yards. Do we have something that goes meters to yards? Yes, we do. This goes meters to yards. Hey, wait a minute, this one goes meters to yards too. Which one should we use? It really doesn't matter. I'll prove it to you. We'll do them both. 7.2 meters times meters on the bottom, yards on top. Okay, let's use this one first. That would be 1 meter equals 1.094 yards. Then we get our calculator just to make sure that don't want you to think I'm just making up these numbers, so I'll use this calculator to show you. 7.2 times 1.094 equals this answer here. It says answers to 3 decimal places, so that'd be 7.87. We should round that 6 because the 8's bigger than 5, or 5 or bigger, so 7.877 would be our answer. 7.877 yards. I know you're like me and love crossing these out every time. The other way we could have done that is 7.2 meters times, again, meters on the bottom, again, yards on the top. Okay, we used this one last time. Let's use this one. 1 yard, so 1 would go on the top this time, 0.914 meters on the bottom. How would we solve that one? We would go, let's get rid of that, we'd go 7.2 times 1, well that still equals 7.2, and then we would divide by 0.914, and we get 7.877. And you don't have to round it because it's a 4. Now if you look really closely, you might have noticed, hey, weren't the answers just a tiny bit different? And yes, they were just a tiny bit different. They both round to 7.877 yards. They were a little bit different. That is a function of the fact that these, remember, are not equals. They're approximately. So if you used this conversion over here, one of these ones, and your friend sitting beside you uses one of these over here, and you compare your answers, you might have slightly different answers. Okay, let's keep going. 7 kilometers, and we're going to switch it to feet. I'm not going to do it twice. I'm just going to do it once. So I'm not sure which one I'll use. We'll take a look. 7 kilometers, I want to switch it to feet. So 7 kilometers times, now do I have a kilometers to feet? No, I don't have a kilometers to feet. What I like to do is I like to work as much in the metric system as possible, because then I'm using my tens and hundreds and thousands, and those are really easy. So what could we change kilometers to in the metric system? So still in the metric system, which we would then be able to change to feet. Why don't we change our kilometers into meters, and then we could change our meters into feet? I think this would be a good strategy. So we're going to change our kilometers into meters, and then we'll change our meters into feet. That would be. It's not the only way you can do it. You could switch your kilometers into miles, right? You could switch kilometers into miles, and then switch your miles into feet, because you do have a miles to feet from last day's work. We do know that a mile is 5,280 feet. But I like doing as much in the metric system as possible. I'll do it this way. I know from our first day in this chapter that 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. And I know from the table up here that 1 meter equals 3.28 feet. Or if you wanted to, you could do 1 foot equals 0.305 meters. Usually I try to put the 1 on the bottom. That's just me. I like multiplying rather than dividing. I have no idea why. So usually I would use this one. 1 meter equals 3.28 feet. Okay, so the meters are taken care of. The kilometers are taken care of. The only thing I have left is feet. That's what I wanted it to be. I'm going to multiply 7 times 1,000. That's 7,000 times 3.28. I don't know. Get your calculator out, and you get 22,960 feet. Oh, you'd have to divide by 1 and divide 1 by 1, but it doesn't make any difference. By the way, this is actually incorrect. I should have the wavy brackets to show approximately. These are not exact answers. They're very, very close, though. Centimeters to yards. Well, we start with 823 centimeters times centimeters. Can we go straight to yards? I don't think so. No, we don't have any centimeters and yards. So I like to stick in the metric system. What could we change centimeters to that could then change into yards? How about centimeters to meters, and then we could use this one right here. Okay, centimeters to meters, and then we'll change our meters into yards. Okay, I know that 1 meter is 100 centimeters. That's one of the ones I have to memorize. Now, the conversion for meters and yards, I can't remember, so I look up here. 1 meter is 1.094 yards. 1 meter is 1.094 yards. By the way, I don't think I've said it yet. I will give you all this on quizzes and tests, so you don't have to stress out about that. Okay, the centimeters are gone, the meters are gone, we're left with yards. That's what we wanted. So what you need to do is you need to multiply 823 times 1 times 1.094, divide by 100, divide by 1. Or you can do it in any order you want if you're multiplying and dividing. You could go 823 divided by 100, which equals 8.23, and then multiply the 8.23 times 1.094. Whichever way you do it, you're going to get approximately 9.004 yards. Just over 9 yards. That 4 shouldn't be so far away from the 0 there. Okay, over the page. 12 feet 3 inches, and we got to switch it to centimeters. Well, what do you think we have to do first here with the 12 feet 3 inches? This is just a little more than 12 feet. Why don't we switch this amount all into inches, and then we can switch that into centimeters. So we already have 3 inches here. We got to ask ourselves, figure out how much is 12 feet in inches. 12 feet, and we want to switch that into inches. And from last day, I remember that 1 foot is 12 inches. So all you need to do is multiply 12 times 12, divided by 1 doesn't make any difference. You get 144 inches. But remember, we also had this 3 inches here. So 12 feet is 144 inches, plus the 3 inches equals 147 inches. That's what we want to now switch into centimeters. Okay, 147 inches times, we want our inches to turn into centimeters, so we look over here, inches and centimeters. Okay, I could use this one, that's inches and centimeters. I'm going to use this one. Do you know I'm going to use this one? Because that's equals. This is exact. This is very, very close to the size of a centimeter. This is exactly the size of an inch. 2.54 centimeters. I'm using that. 2.54 centimeters equals 1 inch. I also like that because the one's on the bottom. That's just my personal preference. The inches are gone. Multiply 147 times 2.54 and you will get 373.38 centimeters. And guess what? This time you actually do get to put an equal sign there because it does equal since we use the 2.54. Not a big deal if you don't put the equals or approximately equal to. I'm okay. I'm not quite that strict with you. Okay, miles to millimeters. Wow, this is quite a conversion you have to do. You have to go from miles to millimeters. Okay, I like to switch to or work with metric system as quickly as possible. So what can we switch miles to? First of all, I hope you're clear. Miles and millimeters do not show up on this at all. We got to switch this miles to something in the metric system, or that's the way I like to do it. So why don't we switch miles into kilometers? Now we're in the metric system. We got to get from kilometers to millimeters. Well, you might memorize it, how many millimeters in a kilometer. A lot of people don't memorize it. So how about if we switch kilometers to meters first, because everyone should memorize that. You might know how many millimeters are in a meter, but let's say you don't. Let's say you only remembered centimeters in a meter. That'd be okay. And then you could switch your centimeters into your millimeters. These three here are all things that you should have memorized. right? And then this one you could get from the table. So let's take a look there first. Kilometers and miles. Alright, doesn't matter which one of these two we use. Let's use this one so our 1 can be in the bottom because I like that. 1 mile is 1.609 kilometers. 1 mile is 1.609 kilometers. Now, you should know that 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. You should know that 1 meter is 100 centimeters. You should know that 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters. You've got to memorize all three of those. Miles, gone. Kilometers, gone. Meters, gone. Centimeters, gone. You've switched from miles all the way to millimeters. Great. How do we do this? It's all dividing by 1, so you don't have to do any dividing. You just have to multiply 0.0031 times 1.609 times 1,000 times 100 times 10. And if you do that, you will get approximately the answer 4,987.9 millimeters. Okay, now for some tricky ones. Square meters and switching to square yards. Do you remember what square meters and stuff like that means? That means, for example, say you had a field and it's a certain, let's say it's 8 meters this way and 4 meters this way. Then the area, this whole amount here, is 8 times 4, 32 meters squared, right? So you have 32 square meters and we want to change it into square yards. Oh, it sounds difficult. How do we do this? Okay, well, you can start the same way. 32 square meters, or we write it this way, right? That's the same as meters squared, square meters. Hopefully that makes sense. Times, pretend it's not squared. If it wasn't squared, you'd be switching meters to yards. And then we could use our table. How many meters and yards? What's the connection here? 1 meter is 1.094 yards. 1 meter is 1.094 yards. But here's the thing, we don't want meters, we want meters squared. Well, if we're going to square this, we have to square everything here. We got to square the 1, we got to square this number, and we got to square this. Basically, since we're moving from square units, we square everything over here. Okay, so what's that leave us with? Well, the meters squared cancels out this meters squared. So what you need to do is you need to go 32 times 1.094 squared. Now don't go 32 times 1.094 and then square all of that. You got to just square this amount, right? So I'll show you. What I would do probably is do the 1.094 squared first. This calculator is really lousy. It can't square, but you know that 1.094 squared is the same as 1.094 times 1.094. So I now have done that amount squared, and then I multiply that by 32. You don't square the 32 because we already had that in square meters. And I get 38.2987. That rounds to 38.299. So our final answer is 38.299, and the units we have left are yards squared, and that's what we wanted. Last one's very similar, but this time we're talking about cubic inches. Remember what that means? That would mean a three-dimensional shape. And I can't think of some 3 numbers that multiply to 77.3, but this dimension times this dimension times this dimension is 77.3. And we want to change that, cubic inches, to cubic meters. How do we do that? Same sort of thing. Cubic inches, that's the same as inches, not squared, cubed, times. Now, this one's tricky because we don't have an inches to meters thing, I don't think. No, there's no inches to meters. So what can we change inches to that we could then change into meters? We want to change our inches to something that we could then change to meters. Well, why don't we change our inches into centimeters, and then we could change our centimeters into meters. I think this might be a good strategy here. And remember, this one's exact, so let's use this one. 1 inch equals 2.54 centimeters. So I'm going to start by going inch. 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters. And then once I have that, whoa, where's that line going? I'll change the centimeters into the meters. And we know that 1 meter is 100 centimeters. Okay, but before you start multiplying, remember this is inches cubed. So this needs to be inches cubed, which means everything here needs to be cubed. And if we want to cross out this centimeters cubed, this needs to be cubed, which means everything here has to be cubed. That's a 3. Okay, so this inches cubed crosses out this inches cubed, this centimeters cubed crosses out this centimeters cubed. You're left with meters cubed, and that's exactly what we want. Alright, so you have to do all the multiplying here. So we have 77.3 times 2.54 cubed. Remember, you have to do 2.54 cubed by itself. Don't be cubing this amount as well. And then you have to divide it by 100 cubed. 1 cubed is still 1, 1 cubed is still 1. They're not going to make any difference. So 77.3 times 2.54 times 2.54 times 2.54 divided by 100 divided by 100 divided by 100 is one way you could do it. It's not the fastest way, but you could do it that way. And when you get your answer, it'll be very small. It's 0.0013. I've actually gone to 4 decimal spots here. Meters cubed. And that's what we wanted, cubic meters. Okay. That is the end of our measurement unit. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you have learned unit analysis, because it's a very useful thing that you will use in your life, and you will also use in chemistry class, because chemistry class is a part of your life, people. Well, for some of you.